Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 7, Don't Panic. I'm Ian Collins and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it's in. And we always start with a bit of diary detail, Dale. It's a nice bit of alliteration there. But you've been monkeying around with the ethical consumer folk this week. What's happening? And who are they?
Who are they? Yeah, look, they've been around a while, a couple of decades, I think.
Oh.
They got a magazine, they're an organization, they got members, and it's all about ethical consumerism, as the name kind of suggests. And I went to their event in London. I felt compelled to, because the event itself, or the panel I went on to, keynote panel, was about Palestine, and they wanted me to talk about my experience at Forest Green and with the big flag on our office, and just talk to the consumers and the businesses, because there are green businesses in the audience, about to encourage them to stand up, to take something from my experience, and I was keen to do that. So I mean, we are in November, so I really shouldn't have gone, but I went because I thought it was
because of your strict kind of almost ecclesiastical ban on working.
That's right. Leaving the town. Actually, I do plenty of work, but leaving the town. So anyway, I went and I had a great time. Told them about our experience at FGR, the big flag, the council battle, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's it. Bit of a non-story.
Well, I liked it.
Good.
It's like the best one I've heard this morning.
It's the first one. Wait till you get on the radio.
Work for me. And of course, we should mention FGR, your football club. Fantastic weekend against Aldershot.
Yeah, Saturday, it was around about midday, brought forward for TV. And I was in London the night before for the ethical consumer thing. And so jumped a train, lovely train ride out of London to Aldershot. And what a game.
Yeah,
I mean, we won 3-2. It was quite close at the end. And I had Robbie sat next to me because he'd been temporarily banned from the touchline for celebrating too much when we score goals.
Yeah.
Well, you can't help. And but at the start of the game, something really weird happened. The sun was beating down like nobody's business. It was like being in the desert. And of course, I had my Palestinian scarf with me. And I wrapped it around my head to keep the sun from giving me damage on my face. But it was Remembrance Day, and I was sat on the halfway line, and straight in front of me there was a band. There were soldiers everywhere. There were wreaths being laid. There was a full blown commemorance of the wars and stuff like that. And this snapper on the halfway line looks up from the center through a sea of soldiers and all this stuff going on to see me wearing my Palestinian symbol of terror to some people, scarf.
And your son looking like Colonel Gaddafi.
And I thought, he's off to sell that to the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
But he didn't bless him.
That's right, yeah. So, some of the boys had a word before he left.
I just had that moment, where you sit and you think, oh, shit.
Oh, God, yeah.
Here comes a storm.
Classic misinterpretation of events, but don't let that stand in the way of a good journalistic photo.
No. But, of course, they listen to this podcast, so they'll be out now trying to track down this snapper.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll be like, yeah, let's have this picture.
It's there somewhere, sitting on somebody's drive.
But that was funny. Our game was great, and a couple of points from the top. We're playing again tonight, actually, and it's our 10-year vegan anniversary as well. And then we've got a partner event as well, and we're going to squeeze in a game of football. Blimey.
Yeah, and maybe the odd cider. Some wicked liquor had at the end after the win. Not for me. I've given up beer for this is day 4. I thought you were going to say year 4. I like it. Till we get to your favourite time of year, Christmas. And then,
yeah. I need Valium then.
Exactly. Let's move to a massive story this week, Dale. Never thought I'd see this headline. Donald Trump is going to sue the BBC for $1 billion.
It's a brilliant story because, it's brilliant and it's bad, right? Donald Trump is interfering with our BBC the way I see it. He's not the only person. BBC, a couple of the senior people at BBC have resigned, and he celebrated that. He's like, he welcomed it. And I went on social media, and I'm like, this is a man. He's a convicted rapist. He's been convicted of tax fraud. He's never resigned from anything in his life. What a hypocrite. He must be the biggest hypocrite in the world to be celebrating this resignation over a doctored clip. I looked at the clip, and 50 seconds have been cut out the middle of something and the bits joined together. And I think, well, look, fair play. That misrepresented it. No question. But is it such a big deal?
Well, the crazy thing about because everybody, left or right, whatever, agrees that it's probably not, you shouldn't, in a trusted documentary strand like Panorama, you probably shouldn't have done that. But they didn't need to. That's the weirdest thing. If you played other parts of the speech, I mean, he literally calls on people to, all right, he doesn't say kick off and break in and kill people or anything like that. But I mean, when your president stands up and starts using the word fight 20 times in a speech, it's quite, a lot of people would extrapolate from that. He's telling us to pitch up at the Capitol building and, make our voices loud and clear. So they didn't need to do the clip thing. And I don't know why they did, but it's prompted him, of course, to carry on the fake news crusade.
Which, Donald Trump calling anything fake news is a joke, right? If he wasn't president, if he hadn't got elected for a second time, he'd be in court right now for exactly that, for inciting the violence that took place in the attempted overthrow of American democracy, for f***'s sake.
I mean, there's the irony of all of this. I mean, you couldn't, I know we use that phrase a lot, you couldn't make it up, but I mean, this is new territory.
This is the world we live in, isn't it?
He was literally impeached, the impeachment processes in place. And as you say, because again, the president, that all kind of goes away. Shall we move to this question from Steve Withnell on Facebook, who says, our airlines are subsidy junkies. 50% of air travel is now leisure. Are we really subsidizing holidays, yet cutting benefits?
Yeah, this was provoked by a post I put out this week, I think it is. Rachel Reeves is proposing to add a per mile tax to electric vehicles because they don't burn fossil fuels, which is so ironic. They're too clean. But actually the problem is, since electric cars came around, government revenue from oil and gas, diesel and petrol has been reducing. And it's getting to be a big problem now with more than 1 million cars on the road. And I think in the next 5 years, it'll be 6 million. So it's a big revenue hole. But the contrast for me was ridiculous because the form of transport that burns the most fossil fuel is flying, and it's completely exempt from fuel duty. So it's bizarre to tax cars for not burning fossil fuels and then to allow air passengers not to pay any fossil fuel duty. And the thing that Steve is referring to is, I flagged up, there's a 20 billion subsidy to the airline industry. They pay virtually no tax of any kind at all. 20 billion. We subsidize people to go flying, and 5 million people live in poverty and can't feed themselves. And the stats are scary, actually. Half of us don't fly at all, and 10% of us take half of all flights. It's absolutely a luxury, and it's absolutely tax-free. It's quite crazy.
But that means we can't go on our annual weekend Beano to Benidorm, Dale.
Beano to Benidorm. You're alliterating away today.
I can't help myself. I was having, I swallowed some kind of alliterative pill. But of course, train travel, as I proved last year, and you've proved many, many times, is actually not just doable, but actually quite an enjoyable part of your trip. So,
yeah, quite right.
Nothing wrong with stopping off for a chocolate croissant in Bruges when you're on a train.
As long as it's vegan,
yeah,
I'm in.
Unless you're going to Alaska, of course, and you'd be on the wrong train.
Yeah. And try to find a vegan croissant in France.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Do they do vegan croissants? I mean, we're going to come on to some vegan stuff in a minute, but yeah, the French, I don't think are kind of, I think that, as my old nan would say, they couldn't give a shit. I think that's the phrase.
They couldn't give a giblet, I reckon.
Give a giblet, yeah. Here's a disturbing headline, Dale. Climate disasters displaced 250 million people in the last 10 years. That's a shocking headline.
It is. And it's a lovely stat to have in your back pocket, when talking to people like Mike Graham, Richard Tice, even, I want to say Piers Morgan, but he's changed. We should talk about that separately. Because, that's 25 million people a year. That's half our country every year over the last 10, adding up to 250 million people. I mean, climate crisis is real, and that's a real impact.
Yeah. And yet it is still quite commonplace. You haven't got to read much. I know it's social media and who gives a hoot what is said in those places. But, the like people talked about the scamdemic for the pandemic. People talk about, and Donald Trump said it out loud, the greatest con. It's a con job. The whole thing has been a con job, which, by the way, I mean, even if you thought that someone was over-egging the stats, okay, you might have an argument between different groups who, put forward different data, etc. But the idea that so every scientist, every geologist, every climatologist, anyone that's involved in the whole process, the entire, which would run into tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, are all on it. They're all on this scam. They'd all have to be. Did they sign up to it? Did they have a meeting somewhere in a kind of carved out rock in South America to cook up this nefarious fake news? I mean, how would that even work? But I don't think people think that far ahead.
No, and also it's the data behind all of those scientists. Like we just recorded one of the 3 hottest years ever this year, but the 2 other hottest years ever were last year and the year before. 3 years in 176 years of records that are the hottest have been the last 3 years. I mean, it's got to tell you something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know quite how the argument for the scam thing kind of stacks up. I mean, it's just.
I think it
tangibly doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
It's populism, and it speaks to people's kind of instincts and fears and kind of belief systems as well. People are willing, that some people, not everybody, are willing to see things through that kind of lens. Oh yeah, it's all a rip-off. Oh yeah, it's all rubbish. Yeah, we're being lied to. Kind of stuff. And they just play to that really kind of base instinct and feeling that a lot of people have. But I think it's shameful. Climate denial is shameful. It should be illegal. We've talked about that before. We've got mainstream politicians, where, if you can call them that, Kemi Badenoch, she's leader of what used to be a mainstream party, but she's a climate denier. And then you've got the Reform Party, who are climate deniers as well, Nige and Rich. It's like it shouldn't be allowed. It's wrong.
And there's another thing that shouldn't be allowed, or should it? Companies that donated to Labour are awarded £138 million in contracts.
Yeah.
We should say and declare, Dale, brutal honesty, you are not one of them. There you go.
It's one of the reasons
I love no Labour contract.
It's one of the reasons I love this story, because I saw the headline and I thought, hello, what's going to happen here? As I read the piece, and of course I'm not in it. I knew I hadn't had any Labour contracts, but you don't know what you're going to be smeared with. So here's this story. As you say, it's 120, 30 million pounds contracts. But people like KPMG are in there, and they're saying, look, we put staff into every government that ever gets elected. This is a secondment thing that has a value, and that's called a donation. But we do it for everybody, every government of the day. So there's stuff in there that doesn't really belong in there. But the bit I loved about it the most was they went back a year into the last Tory administration, and the number was 150 billion.
150 billion,
yes,
from 138 million.
Yes. I thought that shows us where we've been.
So you're trying to suggest there's a bigger problem here.
There was a bigger problem. That was normalized. You didn't get right-wing headlines about that. That didn't happen. Only when it comes to Labour, and it's 1,000 times smaller, do we get a headline about it. And even then, it's not all real. It's not all real kind of contracts that might be in exchange for some kind of donation, because, like I said, KPMG is a great example.
Indeed. Question from superfan Julie Milton on email says, Dale, COP30 has started, but is it broken and pointless? If so, what should replace it, if anything?
But you know what? This question comes up at almost every COP ever. Like, is it pointless? Is it doing anything? Will anything happen? I understand it. And some of the media narratives support it. I went to COP3 in Kyoto, and that was a long time ago. And, back then, the very first climate agreement came out of COP3, an agreement to cut carbon emissions. And it was tiny, like, I don't know if it was 10% or 1%. I don't know what it was. It was tiny. And the media were like, and the NGOs were like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, actually, it's a very big deal. And every COP incrementally pushes us forward. I think the UN chief was talking about Paris, the Paris Accord at COP this week. And I read what she said. And actually, Paris did a great job. We may be off the target, but we were on course for 4 degrees of temperature rise before Paris. We're now on course for 2.5, maybe 3. So stuff has happened. But also there's a rate of change in the world of the adoption of green energy and stuff like that, led by China. Which absolutely should give us the belief that we can get there. We can get that temperature down. And I think COP30, I don't know what's happened in detail. I've seen that, and this is so this is so sweet and funny and ironic and wrong all at the same time. We are not donating to President Lula's Save the Rainforest Fund because we're skint, right? That's what Ed Miliband said. We money's tight. We can't help you save the rainforest. Meanwhile, his department a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was only last week, approved a new subsidy regime for Drax, our old friend. I think it might be £1 billion a year to burn 250-year-old Canadian forests. I mean, we can't afford to help you save your rainforest, Lula, but we can afford to pay Drax to burn Canada's.
Yeah. I mean, I know that was not an area of life that you were happy with before this. Was Drax was something you'd kept your eye on for a long while. They've cropped up on the podcast many times.
Yeah, it's just mad. I mean, they've had huge sums of public money. They make vast sums of profit. They've been found to have lied and deceived the regulator. They're paid fines and shit like that. But they just carry on, throw another log on the fire, is what Drax says.
But apparently, I mean, there's another headline that the sort of energy index classes tree burners as sustainable.
Yeah, this is a new thing, a kind of startup attempt at creating some kind of merit order in the world of energy companies. And, we've seen them come and go over the last few decades. It's not uncommon, but you're right. What they've gone and done is said that tree burning is green. And therefore, Drax appear in the top 5 energy companies, top 5 greenest energy companies in our country. If you want to know how wrong it is, you just have to look at that one fact. Drax is in the top 5.
Yeah. Back to COP, though, in Brazil. What is your take, and we would have discussed this many times, on the sheer amount of people, I mean, we're talking thousands, if you include the entourages and all the rest of it, that fly around the world to get to this place. We know they cut down a load of rainforest in order to build a road for people to get there. And then apparently the hotel and all that is, there's people, dignitaries are trying to have dinner, and there's blokes in hard hats and high vis still plumbing in radiators and stuff. But that's a separate issue. The air miles involved, and Ed Miliband is going back again. So he's gone, he's come back, and then he's returning this week to go for the weekend meetings. Now, some would say, hang on a sec, Ed. I mean, come on, air miles, what are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I understand that. And I think there's always that dilemma in terms of traveling, if you're an environmentalist or it's an environment issue. Should you fly, catch a train, of course, if you can, but you can't do that to Brazil from here. And it's basically a justification that people make to themselves. Look, it's worth going because I can make a difference, or it's an important event. I want to lend my voice, whatever it is. So I'll burn a bit of carbon and get there. And the UN itself is like a traveling circus, I suppose, isn't it? Sure. It goes round the world, and every year it's at a different location. I think it needs to be to involve the world. It couldn't just be in New York. God forbid, with Trump in charge, it couldn't just be in New York. And so it is what it is. I'm not against it. It looks wrong. Thousands of people fly to talk about essentially not flying or not burning fossil fuels.
Sure.
But I think it does. It's done an amazing job, actually. As I say, incrementally, each COP brings something. Even the COP in Glasgow, hosted by Boris Johnson, brought something. There was an outcome, a declaration that talked about ending fossil fuels and stuff like that. Sure. Inch by inch by inch, we're doing the job.
And finally, this is a great question. We get some really good questions lately on the podcast. I think we clocked that over the last couple of weeks. But this one comes from Will Haylock, who says, serious question. If me and my partner were to become vegan, would that be enough to offset our carbon emissions to the extent of allowing us to fly, say, 10 return flights to a European destination, or maybe 2 long-haul return flights per year? So offsetting carbon, essentially, which is not a new thing in itself. Some areas encourage that, but do the numbers work out, Dale?
I think it's a great question. And I had to go and look for some numbers, actually, because I thought I like this question and I want to give it real numbers. Bear with, I'm just going to have a look.
Yeah, these are the real numbers. We need some kind of drum roll here, or kind of fanfare. This is like a VAR decision, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
I like it. Yeah,
we just got to wait around until we get the Dale's looking at the detail now.
Here we go.
Has he made a decision?
The decision's out. This question's onside. Meat eaters. Meat eaters. Average of 2.6 tons of carbon a year, which is quite a lot. all right, that's at the high end. There are low end meat eaters as well, but don't worry about them. Normal worst case, 2.6 tons. Vegans, lowest of all, of course, 1 ton.
Right.
Now, that's a 1.6 ton differential between being vegan and being a, meat
So
eater.
does 1.6 tons buy you a trip to New York?
I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. And I want to. And the great news is, well, essentially, yes. The figures say between 1.7 and 2.6 tons per passenger, New York and back.
Okay.
So just about. If you get the best plane,
Yeah.
if you're vegan, not a meat eater, you can pay to go to New York in your carbon kind of accounting. But Paris, because the other part of the question was, how about flying to
European
Europe?
cities, yeah.
Paris is only 0.12 tons. So you could fly there, 10 times or more as a vegan.
You could live there, frankly, if you did it that often.
Well, then, if you did that, well, actually, there's a Eurostar. But look, anyway.
We're complicating this, aren't we?
The answer is
bicycles. There's all sorts of ways to get there.
You could more or less fly to New York instead of eating meat, more or less, and you can absolutely fly to places like Paris 10 times instead of eating meat. So,
Great.
What are you waiting for?
Great question. We like these kind of questions. They're always interesting. We had a great one last week as well that frankly now escapes me, having given it such
Bacon.
cred.
It was bacon.
Oh, it was the contradictory nature of bacon, investigative journalism versus advertising, or something.
It was in the Guardian. It was in the Guardian. They put up this
Guardian
story. Scientists call for a ban on toxic carcinogenic bacon, and then they're like, "Here's a lifestyle piece about how crispy bacon is."
Yeah. That's like, which is your best crispy bacon the day before they said it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
Dale, we're done
for
another week.
Surely not.
Yeah, it's an outrage, isn't it?
A
lot of fodder.
There must be more going.
A lot of fun, a lot of material there. But of course, you can follow Dale on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on TikTok too.